Welcome to the Homeschool Together podcast. Where one working mom and a stay-at-home dad help you navigate the nuts and bolts of the growing and dynamic world of homeschooling.
With a focus on early learners, like me.
All the ins and outs of building and maintaining your homeschool life.
Homeschool.
Find out tips and tricks to make things like this easier.
I'm reading.
And ultimately, enjoy educating your kids. And what's that last thing?
Have fun together. Did I do good, Daddy?
Yeah, you did, sweetie. Good job. Hello and welcome to Homeschool Together. Thanks so much for joining us. Today we have a really special episode with a listener, Homeschool Journeys, Jessica Weeks. It's a wonderful talk, wonderful interview, and we'll get right into it. But first, if you could head down into the show notes, we're going to have all the links there that she references, all the curriculums, all the programs she uses, a lot of great information. On top of that, we have links to go and leave us a review. We have a link there to leave us a review on iTunes, as well as all the links to our social media and our growing YouTube channels, surging YouTube channel, swelling YouTube channel.
We appreciate everybody. We appreciate the reviews and we appreciate the subscriptions.
We do.
When you subscribe, that really helps us out.
Absolutely. Yeah. It gets you in your inbox. You know, we know we're going to get there safe.
Yeah. We appreciate everybody listening. And we really appreciate Jessica coming on the show today. She has a really interesting perspective. She has two children, one who is gifted and one who is autistic. And she's homeschooling both of her children and utilizing her local parent partnership program. She's doing, juggling that with working part-time at home and her husband who works second shift. So they work kind of a fully shifted schedule. She has a lot going on, but you know, one of the things that really impressed me about her interview is just how even though there's a lot of things, I felt calm, like listening to it. Like she was just, her whole attitude about homeschooling was, we're going to do what works for us and we're going to make things be what we need them to be. And we're going to take our time and we're not going to rush and we're not going to feel this pressure to run. And I just really appreciated that kind of entire vibe of the interview is we're going to do what's right for our kids and learn at the speed that they need to go and not put so much pressure on ourselves. And if that means that we're homeschooling at night because that's we want to be with dad in the morning when he's home, then that's what works for us and that's what we do. And she was leaving our interview, at 9:30 at night to go and read to her kids because that's their nightly reading time as a family. You know, I just loved that everybody has their own way to make it work.
Absolutely. And I think way to make it work is the best way to put it. And they found a way of educating their children, their homeschool, that fit within their family's environment and structure and their timing. Yeah. Like, we brought up in the interview with her husband's shifted schedule. If they went to a normal school, they would rarely ever see their dad, except maybe on the weekends. And hopefully he's not working overtime, right? So these type of things allow families to fit to what their needs are
and maximize their time together. We have friends who the father in their family is a police officer, and so his schedule is always different. Sometimes
it's shifted.
It's shifted. He would be working when the kids would be home, and so the days that he's off, they can just say, today's a day off of homeschool, and we're going to spend this time together as a family. I love being able to tailor our homeschools to enhance our family time, and I know that we do that too on days when I work remotely. If I'm able to get all my work done, we can say, we're taking the afternoon off. We're going to spend time with mom because she's here.
Go to the park, ride bikes. Yep.
I love how adaptable and flexible this is. For her having two children at really not only 3 years apart in age, but then vastly different in
what their needs are.
Their needs are right, and finding a way to study one thing all together and make that work for everybody. It was really inspiring. So I loved talking to her. So without further ado, let's just hop right into the interview with Jessica Weeks. Hi, Jessica. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
So we're really excited to have you talk with us today. We got lots of interesting things to get into, but let's start with the basics. Can you tell us about your family and what drove you all to choose homeschooling?
Funny enough, my husband convinced me we should homeschool our kids before we were ever even married.
Oh, word. I know that one.
Oh, yeah. The same here. Yeah.
Yeah. Go on.
And the really funny part is my husband doesn't remember that conversation. And now he's against homeschooling.
It's a divided house is what you're saying.
It is. It's a divided house, but there was definitely a big push with our oldest for me to continue on with that original plan. When she was about 3.5, she pretty much put herself through kindergarten, like all on her own. She taught herself to read, do math, and so by the time we did that kindergarten intro night that they do at the local elementary school, she had already mastered and beyond their end of kindergarten, goals for the year. And I just didn't feel like sending her to school to learn something she learned when she was 3 would really be a good use of her time. So, so we've kind of just snowballed from there and just kept going. And that's how it started and how it's continued.
And how old are your children now?
My oldest is 11. She turned 11 in February. And then my youngest will be 9 in August.
Wow. And so, since you were already homeschooling your oldest, you just decided to continue with your younger. And did that go kind of the same way? Or did you have thoughts about maybe putting your younger child in school, or what was your thought process there?
Actually, my youngest was a definite homeschooler. She's autistic. She does things her own way. She really resists traditional learning, like classroom learning. She hates worksheets and writing, sitting still and doing things that they would expect them to do in school. But she loves learning in general. She loves to cuddle in bed and watch documentaries, or, just talk to you and ask you tons of questions. So she is just a natural born homeschooler.
Oh. Well, what was could you walk us through a little bit of the process on that? Like when that was identified, how did you, learn to pivot to that and adapt your homeschool lifestyle? Like, what was that whole process like when you find out or you look to see that your child is diagnosed?
She was actually diagnosed at 3.5.
Okay.
But we had suspicion since she was an infant. Nothing really changed in terms of any of that. It's just kind of keep living our lives with her the way we have been. And then we just try and add in and cater to her desires to learn what she wants to learn, how she wants to learn it, and try to nudge in a little bit of the traditional stuff, some math here and there, maybe some reading or writing when she's willing.
Did you at first try a curriculum and then it kind of crashed and burned, or did you just always go with this kind of learner-led model?
I started out with my oldest more traditional, trying some curriculum and stuff. And we still do use curriculum, but not in the way it's written. We kind of make the curriculum work for us. So we use Build Your Library, which is literature based. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that one.
Yep, that's what we use as well.
That's what we use as well.
Perfect. So you guys are totally familiar.
We are.
Yeah. So it's amazing how easy that is to cater to each kid. So we do the read alouds as a family and we talk about things. And then, maybe my youngest, she doesn't do the writing or the activity sheets while my oldest does. And maybe
so you're doing one level together, you're combining?
Yes, we are. This year things are actually going to change for us a lot next year because since my oldest was in kindergarten, we also use our local district's parent partnership program. So we use that on a part-time basis to take a few classes, and my oldest loves it. She absolutely loves it. She loves taking her classes with her friends and going, a few hours a week. But my youngest, not so much. She does not do well in the classroom, even though I'm there with her. But because I have to be on campus and I have to have her with me, we've tried to get her in some fun classes to fill the day. But next year, my oldest will be old enough to get a certificate of independence. So I don't have to be on campus with her. So I'm going to let my youngest drop out and not take classes there. So we're going to shift gears. We're going to go back and do a level of Build Your Library with my youngest, and then try and squeeze in a little bit with my oldest as well. It feels like it's going to be chaos, but I think we can make it work.
So how did this year go? I'm selfishly, we're going to have 2 that are 3 years apart as well doing Build Your Library, and I'm going to try to combine levels. How did that work this year? Did you find that it was a struggle to teach to multi-age? Did you go with the level that your oldest would have been at and then catch your youngest up, or go with the younger's level and then add older things in? You can go forward or go back.
Yeah, we went way forward.
Okay.
We actually jumped ahead and started with level 7.
Okay.
So because the geography and learning about cultures around the world appealed to all of us a lot more than doing the history levels that my oldest would have been in. And we've done really well. We've swapped out a few of the books that didn't sit well with us. We just didn't enjoy them for whatever reason. But in general, we've really enjoyed it. My youngest does really well with sitting and listening to the stories. And it's amazing the kinds of things that will come out of her mouth after we read something. I mean, she just has the most amazing ideas and thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like even though it's way above where she would be, because she's technically considered 3rd grade and level 7 would be then at least 4 years above, I think she's keeping up with it really well. She's just not doing all the work.
Right. So you're just tailoring like, okay, we're not going to have you do all the copy work or maybe this report or something, because do you like sub in maybe some more art or, other things that she could do that aren't like strictly called out in the curriculum but would be more her level?
Not really. I think the only thing we really do for her separate is I do a special spelling curriculum with her. We started all about spelling, and then of course she does her math. But she she does the reading and the discussions with us. And even with my oldest, because she's taking 3 classes at our PPP this year,
Mm-hmm.
I don't make her do all the projects because she has homework, and she's taking 2 middle school classes at our PPP, which have a lot more homework than the elementary school classes. So it was a bit of a transition year for her. So we're taking it a lot more relaxed, and we're just enjoying the reading and the conversations and the thoughts that come with the curriculum. So we'd use it very, very loosely.
You talked a little bit about the homework. Could you talk a little bit more about like what are the expectations in the PPP for you? Like we're in our parent partnership here, and I don't know if it's different or if it's similar to what you're experiencing. What would be like the typical, if somebody's listening who's interested in a parent partnership, what would be the workload that your oldest is seeing in those classes?
Yeah, sure. So for our PPP, it's really actually a great model. It's kind of almost like a university model. They put out a class schedule, and each kid picks what classes they want to take. Each class is worth a certain, FTE hours to determine if you're full-time or part-time. And then each class also comes with homework. So if you have a class that, like, middle school classes are often 4 or 5 FTE hours, even though they're an hour and a half to 2 hours in class. So then the FTE hours are made up with homework. So a 5-hour FTE class with 2 hours in class will have about 3 hours of homework a week. So it's really flexible. It depends on the week. It depends on the teacher, what they're learning at the time. Sometimes my oldest will have a story to write or some, a big project to do. Other times she's like, yeah, I don't have a lot of homework this week. So it's a little more relaxed some weeks, a little heavier other weeks. But it's not terrible. I don't think for homework, it's not like a regular school where you get a ton of homework. It's just each class gets their own 1 to 2 hours of homework per week. So it depends on how many classes you take mostly.
Well, yeah, that's really interesting because I know our daughter she kind of did this kind of blended kindergarten level thing this year, but curriculum wise, we're kind of in 1st grade, kind of getting to the end of 1st grade now and moving on to maybe 2nd grade level this year. And so I'm looking to see what type of other work and effort that she's going to have to do, because I know I already have a lot of time to do homeschool. I only have so much time to do homeschool at during the week, and having the parent partnership classes does eat in a little bit of that time, and then to have homework leveraged back, that may be a big burden. Do you find that to be a challenge to balance the parent partnership work with the homeschool work? And is that just kind of a superset, or is it like, are you adapting your curriculum to account for those extra hours? What does that look like for you guys?
Yeah, it was a really big struggle when we first started out. And over the years, it's been more about me learning how to relax on the homeschool side of it with our curriculum because you don't want to overwhelm them. We homeschool for a reason. We want them to have time to explore their own interests and be kids and have fun. So originally we had the PPP classes and the homework, and we were doing all of that, plus all the extra stuff at home. And then I realized it's just too much. So I've really pulled back on what we do at home. And so since we're doing the Build Your Library, we've been on the same level for 1.5 years already, and it'll probably take us another year to finish it. And I've learned to be okay with that. And that's okay. I think that's a hard thing in general with homeschooling is you want to push through with the curriculum. You feel like you should do a whole year's worth of curriculum in a year. And it's just such a struggle mentally.
Yeah.
And overcoming that is the hardest part, I think.
No, I'm absolutely 100% in the same camp. I'm trying to keep a good cadence and a good pacing, and I see how fast we're moving, and I don't want to move too fast because I don't want her to not fully understand what we're going through. So I'm cycling back and doing that. But do you find it to be a little tiring to do the same curriculum for so long? Have you seen your kids wane a little bit on that? I know we've been doing the Around the World for the Build Your Library and Torchlight combination, kind of around the world study, and I know we've been on that for over a year. And I'm starting to like, I'm excited to move on to something new. Do you have any issues around that, or is that just kind of moves with the flow of the day?
Yeah, we've definitely had some times where we're getting tired, but at the same time, I find ways to refresh it. So we'll take pauses to do certain unit studies. And we're actually, after this week, we're going to take a pause from our continent studies, and we're going to do a Harry Potter unit for a month.
So do you go year round? Is the big question that I always have is, are you able to go year round, or do you take breaks? How do you account for your whole year?
We transitioned probably 2 or 3 years ago to schooling year round because I find we take a lot of breaks throughout the year anyway.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to leave a extra break in the summertime. And especially for me, wintertime between Thanksgiving and Christmas is always a hard time to homeschool.
We just give up on it entirely.
Yeah, we learned that one.
Last year we did the Build Your Library Holidays Around the World unit study just so that we didn't have to feel like we were getting behind in our other stuff.
Yeah, it's so hard.
Yeah, it's a hard time between that time. And then January is my busiest work month. So I generally we really don't do any homeschooling during January. So we have almost like that 2-month period where it's like nothing's getting done. So instead of summer break, we kind of just take a long winter break and then like a week here and there throughout as we feel we need to. So I feel like homeschooling through the summer allows us to comfortably take breaks throughout the year as needed without feeling stressed or like we need to make up for anything at any time.
So when you take this large break between, Thanksgiving and the end of your busy season for work, what do you mainly have the kids do during that time? Do you pull in like a separate unit study? Do you do some unschooling? How do you kind of cope with that time that can be really busy and you don't have a lot of time to plan?
So far, I've mostly leaned heavily on just doing their parent partnership classes and getting that homework done. And that's about as much as I can handle that time of year, honestly. And then for the rest of the time, I just let them do their thing. They have a lot of free time in the wintertime to do whatever they want, honestly. And pre-Christmas, my oldest, she loves to like set up the house and decorate with homemade things. So I count that as school, honestly.
That's arts and crafts, man.
That's our class. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, she likes to bake cookies and she wants to do gingerbread houses and plan a Christmas party with her cousins. So I am totally happy to let her have at it. And I call that her unschooling school for the month. And then January is just chaos.
So I guess this is a good time to talk about your work and then your husband's work schedule and balancing all that. Could you talk a little bit about what you do and how you manage that against your schedule? And your husband has an unusual schedule too.
Yeah, I don't know if I balance it. to be honest. I feel like our lives are just chaos, and we somehow manage to make it work. My husband's schedule is very consistent. He works evenings, so he goes to work sometime between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. and then comes home either 11 p.m. or 1 a.m. in the morning. Wow. So that we can kind of rely on to be consistent for the most part. And we don't do school when he's home because he works a lot. So when he's home, that's family time. Don't do school in the mornings, basically. And then my work is actually, I work very part-time, and it's mostly very flexible. As long as I get my work done on time and nobody's mad at me, my boss is happy. So that's a good thing. Sometimes I do have to have things done at a certain day in a small period of time. And my kids are luckily really independent, and they're happy to go play and do whatever for a few hours when I need them to. So it works out somehow. I don't know how, but it does.
No, I'm sure it can be very stressful, especially with a shifted schedule like that. We have some other friends who are homeschooling as well, and the husband kind of has a less dependable schedule than what you have, and he's kind of shifted all around, and it can be, be a little frustrating over time. How do your kids handle homeschooling in the afternoon and the evenings versus the mornings? I find that mine is the best in the morning. Is that their best time as well, or are you kind of conflicted there?
No, actually, my husband's had this schedule since our oldest was 6 months old. So the whole family is really on a later schedule. We've adjusted to it really well. My oldest is also not a morning person. She is totally her mom there. She takes like 3 hours to actually wake up. So I'm not good in the mornings. My oldest isn't good in the mornings. So I actually like that we just don't do anything in the mornings, and then we use our afternoons and evenings for schooling. It seems to work really well for us. I know it doesn't work well for a lot of families. They're more morning people. That's where they're refreshed. They've got the energy. And we're kind of the opposite. We do, some of our country or continent reading in the afternoon, and then math and sometimes spelling in the afternoon, just to get that nailed out. And a lot of times we finish up our evenings with our literature reading before bed. And usually I start that around 9:30. Sometimes we go until my husband gets home from work too. Wow. And it's just normal for us at this point. We're all used to it.
How do they handle the parent partnership classes? Are they sometimes early in the morning, or are you specifically picking classes that align to your guys' schedule? Sometimes I know the parent partnership can be kind of like I know with ours, we're waiting on bated breath for the classes for next year, and we know they're probably going to be like 9 or 10 in the morning. Do you run into those problems, or has it been pretty flexible for you guys?
Yes and no. Okay. They start this year, the earliest classes started at 10. And so we have 2 days a week that we're there at 10 a.m. And those mornings are a little rough, but my kids are actually really good about getting ready to go fast. So I don't have to wake them up until about 8:45 in the morning. And then we leave about 9:45, 9:40, and we get there just in time. So we don't have to wake up too early. So we manage it pretty well. But yeah, sometimes when they were earlier, it was a little rough.
It must be so nice that, because you homeschool, you can work around the fact that your husband has this shifted schedule. You can shift your whole family life later without having to be, kids up and on the bus at 7. That must be so freeing for your family.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a huge blessing for our family too, because especially when my husband is working weekends on top of all week long, if my kids went to public school, they would never see their father.
Yeah. I was just thinking your schedule in my head, and I'm like, they would never see him. That's wild.
Yeah. So it's great that you're able to shift this so that they can spend time with their dad, and that works for your family. But you said right up top that your husband's not really very supportive of homeschooling. Can we talk about that a little? How does that work? Is it he just feels uncomfortable with it, or does he want them to go back to school?
It's a tricky one. He supports the fact that he believes that I'm doing the best thing for our kids, but he also has doubts. He feels like they're missing out on some of those traditional school experiences. And I love my husband to death, but I think he's also out of touch with what school is for a lot of kids. Growing up, he loved school. He was a great student. He had a lot of friends. He played all the sports. And it wasn't like that for me. So we come at it from a different perspective right off the bat. And then with the way schools have changed so much, even in just the last couple of years, and I don't think he's keeping up with that, if that makes sense. So he doesn't see the hard times that kids have at school the same way that I might. Like, if you're in one of the parenting groups on Facebook and you hear all these complaints that the moms are having, or like my oldest, she's actually in the high cap program for our district. And I've gone to a few of those meetings and I've talked with some of the moms of high cap kids, and they'll talk about how their high cap kids are just shoved out into the hallway to do independent work because the teacher can't teach them. They have to teach everybody else. Or you talk to moms of kids with IEPs who are autistic or dyslexic or this or that, and hear their struggles. And I just think, how could any parent, with these kinds of kids want to put their kid in these schools? But he doesn't see that like I do. I hope that all makes sense.
That must be really, really stressful. Trying to juggle kind of your experience with, what he thinks they're missing. Is it getting easier through the years as they continue to grow, or do you think it's something that you're going to have to tackle? I mean, definitely when people think of those just, the quintessential high school experiences, or quintessential school experiences, excuse me, it's high school that they usually think about. Do you think that that's like going to come to a head then, or maybe the proof will be in the pudding that your kids are doing so well with this, other program?
I think it's kind of always going to be a struggle. The partnership program definitely helps. And there was some kind of back and forth with my youngest not going next year. And he didn't really fight me hard on it, but he also knows that if he did, probably wouldn't win the fight. I don't want to make that sound like I'm a mean parent or a mean wife, but I'm just trying to do what's best for my daughter, and she doesn't want to go. She struggles in the classes, and I don't feel it's worth making her go. So that was a fight, even just this year after all the, we've been homeschooling for I want to say 5 or 6 years now. So it still comes up when there's a change, or, he might make a comment, about, gosh, the kids really should be doing X, Y, Z like normal school kids do. But I don't know, it's tricky. It's a tricky balance. Yeah, that's a hard one.
So when he talks about those experiences and whatnot, are these typically sports, or is it a certain type of science and education type of thing? I know there's some concerns around that people are worried that they're not
going to be able to do chemistry at home.
I can't do chemistry at home, or I'm not dissecting frogs in the kitchen type of thing. Or you can't participate on the football team. Are those some of the concerns that he may have?
His are actually more general, like the classroom experience, or oddly enough, like even like the bullying side of it, where you have to deal with those kinds of mean people and learn how to deal with that. And like how my youngest doesn't do well in classes, he thinks that we should push her to do more. And he hopes that by forcing her to take these classes, that it will help her overcome it somehow. And I just, with being with her in the classroom for a few years now, I don't see that happening with her. And I would rather give her the space to develop at her own pace, while he would rather try and push it. He thinks that exposure is helpful instead of allowing her to recede back into her own way of doing things.
Is the parent partnership a nice compromise for that?
Yes, it has definitely been a really nice compromise. It's going to be different with my youngest not doing it next year. I'm actually excited for that, to just get to fully homeschool. But yeah, my oldest absolutely loves it. So she's just going to keep up with it. And she's going to add more classes next year too. So it's been a great compromise for both my husband and my oldest. and she gets to take some classes that I might not teach her or might not do as well at teaching her. She can do a writing class or a Spanish class. Or I think next year she's even taking like a home ec style class, which of course I could do at home, but it's not always as fun to cook something with your mom as it is with your friends.
Yeah, I didn't want to learn to cook at all when I was a kid. My mom kept trying to teach me and I just like wanted nothing to do with it. I wish I had paid attention.
Well, I know for certain I couldn't do Irish step dancing or sewing. So
right, the things our daughter's taking in our prayer partnership. So since you're going to be completely homeschooling your younger child next year, so can you talk with us a little bit about where you homeschool in your house? Do you have a dedicated room or do you do it in the dining room? Like, what does your homeschool space look like?
Yeah, we don't have a dedicated space. We mostly do it at the dining room table, and that is mostly at the kids' request. It's big. They can set up all kinds of activities on it. I let them play with their Legos or their Play-Doh while I read. There's plenty of room for them to just cover it in projects. I'm sure every homeschooler knows how that goes.
Exactly.
It kind of sprawls throughout the house. We have a dedicated room and we homeschool there occasionally, but we mostly, it sprawls everywhere.
Yeah, it's either living room or kitchen table.
Yeah, it takes over your house.
It really does. Yeah. So sometimes, we homeschool at the counter for doing a messy project, art or science. My kids have an art desk and they still will want to do art at the kitchen counter.
So since you do it in this common space, do you have like rolling trolleys with your supplies or some dedicated bookshelves, or how do you kind of manage all of that?
Yeah, luckily the way our house is set up, it's very open, which is really handy. But we do have in our dining room, we've got the big bookshelf full of all kinds of books. And I bought the Target plastic drawers that I shoved against the wall under our counter where the stools would go. No, it's homeschooling supplies. And those are full. And we recently got one of those rolling trolleys as well. So yeah, it's just homeschool stuff everywhere. It takes over literally the whole house.
We're proud of our homeschooling. When people walk in, they look all over. We're like, there's homeschooling over here, homeschooling over there. We're homeschooling. We got it everywhere.
Yeah. With this kind of dynamic homeschool environment, and you're having the parent partnership, and then your two children are going to be split from that. How do you plan your week, your month? Are there any tools you use? Is it paper and pencil? How do you account for all of that to stay on schedule and make sure you meet your swimming class on time and whatever it might be?
Yeah, that was a new one for me once our schedules really started getting heavy. In fact, before COVID hit, that 2019 to 2020 year, my oldest was taking 5 classes at our PPP and taking, 4 dance classes. And then also and my girls also do Girl Scouts. So it was a lot. And I had a dry erase weekly, planner thing on my fridge. It was just a big magnet, and that worked for a while. But at the beginning of this year, end of last year, I finally broke down and went with a paper planner, especially since my workload increased also. So I needed something to help me organize when certain work stuff needed to get done for me, when each kid has a class, when there's this, that. And the planner I use also has something that I love. It's got a little section where you write in, and I think it has 7 sections. So I have 7 different subjects I can write in. And then it has a grid afterwards. And the grid is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So once we do a subject for the day, I just make a little check mark in the grid for each kid, and they each have their own color. It's color coded. And so just at the end of the week, I can look back and go, wow, we actually did all this stuff. So that's helped me a lot, not only to stay organized, but really realize that even when we're not intending to do a lot of learning, we really are. So that's boosted me also. So it's helped me stay organized and boosted my homeschooling. I don't know. I'm at a loss for a word for it right now, but confidence, I should say. It's boosted my confidence.
So how do you deal with, how far ahead do you plan, and how do you deal with things when the plan needs to change? That's always what I use. I use a digital planner because I'm always like, I want to be able flexible. Like, and once I put it in pencil, even pencil, it's like, oh, now I gotta erase it.
Yeah, I do have my digital planner too. I've got my Google Calendar on my phone. It yells at me many times a day to remember things, and it's easy to change that. And I'm okay just taking my pen and crossing things out in my paper planner.
So you've made peace with it.
Yes, I've made peace with it.
So that's the place I need to get to. Just make peace with the crossouts.
It's hard. It is. It's hard. But I don't plan curriculum wise in my planner. So that's probably where it makes it easier to feel comfortable crossing things out. Like if my kids have to miss dance class, it's usually because they're sick or it got canceled. So I'm like, nope, we didn't go.
Okay. So when it comes to curriculum planning, do you use something different, or do you just kind of take we're going to do the next page in the book, or the next, the next build your library country, or, what comes next, or do you plan that somewhere else?
Yeah, I don't plan that at all. As you know, because Build Your Library has the schedule for you. So we just work through their schedule at our own pace. So that way I don't have to plan homeschooling. I just I print it out and I look at it and I go, and I highlight as we go through it. So if it's highlighted, I know we did it and I know what to do next. So it just keeps that easy for me to just flow as we need.
Oh, that seems very reasonable, especially with such a busy schedule. Do you have something, I mean, maybe other than your planner, that you can't live without in your homeschool space? For me, I always like to joke it's the crates.
Yeah, we do books in crates.
Everything's in crates, and everything's organized via crates, and I just pull out of the crates. Do you, like, Ariel makes me binders, but really the binders just sit there, and I just use the crates. So, like, what is there something for you guys, like maybe a computer or maybe some technology?
I feel like, honestly, for me, it's my printer.
Okay.
Word. We have got one of those eco tanks. It is amazing.
I don't know how anybody can homeschool without a good printer. I love it. Yeah. And a few years ago, I upgraded to a color toner printer from a black and white one. Oh, I'm in love.
So what do you use the printer for?
Everything.
Yeah.
So I print out all our Build Your Library guides. I can't stare at a screen. It hurts my eyes to stare at the screen more than I have to. So I print it all out. I have some Brave Writer, like literature guides and a writing curriculum that I've printed out. This year we're trying out, I don't know if you've heard of glitter bombers.
Yeah, glitter bombs. It's like a art, right?
Yes. We joined that earlier this year. It was kind of half birthday present to my oldest because she's my artsy fartsy kid. And their art guides are just beautiful in color. So I print them out and we can do them whenever we need to. I love my printer. I print everything.
This week I've actually been using the printer a lot as well. The younger one wanted me to print off Anna and Elsa printing sheets and
coloring.
And then I said, well, maybe I could use that. And we're doing Eastern Africa right now. So I was like, oh, we're going to be in Tanzania. Let's print off some coloring pages for like Mount Kilimanjaro and things like that. So I've actually been using the printer a lot this week. So I totally understand. It's a wonderful, little tool. I know do you guys use the library a lot? Like, I know we use it a lot. We use it to print things. We use it for resources. How much does the library feed into your guys', homeschool?
Yeah, we have a dedicated library box on our coffee table.
I get it. We have a crate and a special bag. I got a special bag for Christmas. And the moment I opened it, I was like, it's my new library book bag. I knew it. Yeah. I just knew it. I was like, I need something that is like double reinforced. That I could actually I could fill it to bursting and it would not break. That was my request, and he fulfilled it.
Yeah, we definitely do regular trips to the library. I try to make those a lot for fun. I've pretty much bought all the books that we need for our Build Your Library level that we're doing this year. Next year, I'm going to try and utilize the library a lot more though, because they have all the books for level 1 at our library, which is the level we're going to be doing. And I'm running out of room for books.
I feel this in my soul. Yes, we're going to be doing level 1 next year as well. And I have bought many of the books, but I'm now wondering, like, I don't have that much more space left. So
yeah, that's the hardest part. I feel like just all the books, and you don't want to stop buying them, and you don't want to get rid of the ones you say you don't need anymore, because what if you need them again?
we're not pack rats. We're curators of excellent literature.
Book hoarders. I mean, there's.
It's not a problem unless you admit it's a problem. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, hey, just buy another bookshelf. That's what we do. We just
go to IKEA, get another bookshelf. What do you got to complain
just another
about?
Kallax. It's all right.
We don't have the room for it. I wish. My 11-year-old has 2 bookshelves full of books. Her nightstand is full of books, and she has 3 of those office filing boxes stacked in her room full of books, plus the books on her bed, the books on her floor.
We've got books under our bed, books under our youngest daughter's bed. Our older daughter's got a bookshelf in her room, and we've got books and crates all over. I hear this. I so hear this.
We're talking a lot about dead trees. Have you, what type of technology do you use? Do you guys have laptops? Do you have e-readers? Do your kids like reading on screens and things of that nature? How does that look for you guys?
Yeah, we do use electronics. Mostly for math. My kids prefer to do math online. They're not big fans of reading much on electronics. They do have like the Kindle Paperwhites, but they generally seem to prefer paper books. I know it's a lot of dead trees, but I try to buy used a lot.
No, that's interesting, because I've been wondering if, the younger generations, if they're going to like, reading on devices. I know for me, I made the great switch to, I read on my phone. And so it's everything I need. It's all right here. I made that big change a long time ago. So like we have the print books, but they're there just a lot of times for show. And then sometimes when I want to not look at the screen periodically, but I've been wondering if e-readers in the homeschool space are going to catch on. I'm always interested.
I think it's nice you can take it with you, but I think there's something about a physical book that's exciting. So you said you're doing math online. What program are you using?
My 8-year-old she uses Prodigy.
Okay.
She's been enjoying that one lately. And right now, my 11-year-old, she was doing Prodigy for a while. We really slacked on math for about a year. So she had Prodigy to kind of refresh on some of the higher level, like long division, the things that nobody remembers how to do. And she's feeling more confident now. So she's back into her pre-algebra curriculum. She's doing art of problem solving. She's trying that one right now. But math is a hard one, I think, for so many, because it's so individual and you don't want them to hate it. So I'm very much, whatever makes you happy, right?
No, absolutely. Yeah. And, speaking of those type of challenges, have you run into any, we've all been dealing with our own challenges over the last 2 years or so with COVID and whatnot. Have you run into any challenges, with 2 children, homeschooling, middle years, middle grade, late elementary or, middle school level? What type of challenges are you running into that are unique to you that maybe you can help others with?
That's a good question. It really is. I feel like right now we're at a pretty good groove, but there's definitely been challenges along the way. There's always challenges along the way. And I know when COVID hit and everything shut down, we really shut down a lot too and dropped the homeschooling. And I think getting back into that was hard for us. And I expect with my oldest being 11, that the hard part's really going to be coming up in the next few years.
Yeah, right.
Are there specific challenges that you're kind of foreseeing and thinking about, like how you're going to tackle them now as you move into middle school and high school?
Yeah, I think I'm mostly worried about high school and making sure that she's able to get into the colleges that she wants. And so we're kind of trying to plan a path or make sure there's a good way to make that work for her. For a long time, she's wanted to be a vet, which of course is major schooling, major schooling. She's considering now doing something else. She's thinking about maybe being a midwife. So there's still flexibility. Maybe things will change in the future, but either way, that's a lot a lot of schooling that she's going to have to do. She's going to need to make sure she can get into a college or university. So I think that's my biggest fear, is that I won't make it happen for her somehow.
Is that something that you're going to get assistance from your parent partnership with? I mean, as you kind of move into the high school years, right, they're going to help to make sure that she's prepared and leaving with, an equivalent high school education to, another public school.
Or even Running Start.
Yeah. Right now, our parent partnership program actually only goes up to 8th grade.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So I'm hoping that they will extend it as they get more younger students going up, but their high school levels dropped even long before COVID. They quit doing high school because I think a lot of students that went there just went on to different paths when they hit high school. Maybe they went to high school full time, or they started doing Running Start. So they just didn't have the high school numbers. So I'm hoping that changes. But if it doesn't, she totally is wanting to do Running Start like as soon as she can. So I think that's my saving grace, is that she wants to do Running Start. Yeah. It helps me relax a little bit because I know that at least if she's doing Running Start, she'll get those college classes that will count for high school credit. And I think if you do your 2 years of Running Start full time and get your associate's degree, it also counts as a high school diploma.
Yeah, I think
you get your diploma and your
on the same day,
associates.
right?
Yeah, at the same time. Yeah, exactly. That's right.
Yeah. So, I mean, high school is just my biggest fear, homeschooling. And I'm sure it's kind of a silly fear, but it's a fear, I think, for most of us.
Well, I think that's when everything gets serious, right? Everything you do before high school, no college really cares. They don't care what kind of grades you got in middle school.
They're not asking for your 5th grade transcript.
Yeah, they don't care. But then high school all of a sudden high school starts to really matter. And not just the classes that they've taken, but if they volunteered, if they played sports, all those other intangible things, now it all starts to be like for credit.
And I know, but I also know there's many alternative paths to getting to university. I'm actually dropped out of high school at 17, but I have a bachelor's degree in accounting. So
yeah, there are lots of paths. And I think that, schools, as opposed to when we went to school, schools now are used to seeing lots of homeschool kids applying and being very successful. So I think it's definitely changed the mark of what they're looking for. And I think with COVID and so many students doing some portion of homeschooling, there's a lot of kids that are started and are staying. I think that the incoming classes in the next few years are going to have a higher percentage of kids that have some or all.
Homeschooling's going to be on the transcript.
Yeah, some or all of their high school will be homeschooling.
Yeah.
I think that's probably very true.
I think that is true. Yeah.
We've been talking about the kids. We've been talking about educating them, all the challenges and everything. What about you? I always want to talk about the educators because most of the people listening to this are the educators. How did you transition into being an educator? Were you a little bit afraid of that at first? Was that something that you naturally kind of took up? Or was there some challenges there for you?
For the most part, it was a pretty easy transition. Honestly, though, the biggest challenge for me was the time with which I had to transition into not just mom, but educator or facilitator of an education. Mm-hmm. I'm very much more a relaxed, I believe in delayed formal education for kids, unless they, want it, of course. So I'm like, I won't worry about teaching my oldest to read until she's, like 7, if that's what she wants. And then she came to me just after her 3rd birthday and was like, Mom, can you teach me how to read? And I was just caught totally off guard. I'm like, I don't think so.
We have an almost 3-year-old, so I can imagine if she walked up and like, I want to read now.
Yeah,
like, exactly. Okay.
Like, I am not prepared for this. So I did my quick search online about a good way to teach kids to read. And I found the Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons book.
Yep.
I was like, great. It's got great reviews. It's only $20. We can do it. I bought it off at Amazon and we started working on it. And by lesson 5, she was just in tears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See the book.
Boring.
And she was in tears. I'm like, well, this is not how I want to teach my children.
No.
We had the same experience.
Same.
Yeah. So I tossed that one aside and I'm like, okay, give me time. I need to research a good one because I'm like, I can't teach you how to read. I love you and I can read, but I'm not prepared to teach it yet. And then I actually found her reading eggs online, and she loved it. Absolutely loved it. My husband and I would wake up in the morning when she was 3.5, and she would be on the computer doing her reading lessons all on her own. So, and at least that helped. It helped some of the burden of trying to teach her to read, because I'm like, she loves it. She does it herself. Now I have my time to try and transition into being more of an educator for her. But yeah, that was the hardest part. That just sudden, way sooner than expected, teach me moment.
Absolutely.
I can totally empathize with that. So, now you've been homeschooling for, I guess 6 years. You've gone through a lot of ups and downs. What do you think you wish you would have known at the beginning? What would you say to new homeschoolers who haven't embarked on this yet that you kind of wish you had known then?
Biggest one I always say is relax. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. You don't need to jump right in with both feet and go gung ho, 6 hours a day doing all these lessons. It's okay. Take your time, relax, focus on your relationship with your kids. That's a huge one, because when you're with them 24/7, there are those days that, oh man. Whew. Yeah.
Yeah, but then there are those days that are just magic. And I think that, what you said about connection with your kids is just, it's so huge. I feel like we have a connection with our children that I don't know that we could have had with them under different circumstances, or maybe it just would have looked differently. It wouldn't have been the same connection, a different connection maybe.
Yeah, I think if my kids were in school, it would be so much harder, especially with my oldest being a preteen and, those fun beginning puberty years. We definitely have our moments where we butt heads, and she's got her attitude. I've got my own attitude. But because we're together so much, we have more time to also get over it and move on and repair. We can have our moments where we're really just going at it. And first, the silliest things, of course, because both my children are female and they both have very strong opinions about things, just like their mother. So we butt heads, but we're able to talk through it, move on, repair, and, an hour later we can be cuddling in bed and reading a book. And I don't know if we'd have the time to go through that full cycle if they were in school, and then we had to do homework and rush through dinner and then do bedtime, so they're refreshed in the morning for school the next day. And I don't know how it would look if we had to worry about that on top of everything else.
Yeah, I feel that.
It gives
really
you more space.
Yeah, it does. And there are times when we too can let our daughter go kind of cool off, and then we come back around and, we are able to reset and rebalance. But I agree with you. I don't know that we would have the time with all the other things we would have to do with getting homework and bath and getting to bed on time, getting up for the bus and all those things. Yeah, I really agree with that. I think that's very insightful. Well, this has just been so much fun. I've had a great time, and I think, it's just been a joy to hear your story. And I know that this helps other parents, especially new parents listening, about what their lives could be like for those people who might, have a spouse that works second shift and, might have children with differing needs. I think this was really helpful. So thank you so much for your time. We so appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And hopefully my chaotic life is inspiration for somebody.
It's good because everyone can see bits and pieces of themselves. I saw bits and pieces of myself when you were talking. We did
the whole parent partner stuff.
Well,
that's my life now.
Yeah. I mean, just a lot of your comments, you can't see us here, but we're nodding as you were talking, like, yep. Yeah. Oh, we know that one. Yep. And that's what this is really about, building that sense of community. And, we're not crazy and we're not alone. So
we're not that crazy.
We're not that crazy. So we appreciate you taking the time and putting yourself out there to give us this interview today.
Yeah. And I hope it does help, especially, families starting out, that they do this and you're getting started and like, oh my gosh, we're failing. We've got to be failing. This is chaos. And my kids won't do this and they won't do that. And then hopefully hearing that, no, chaos is normal. At least it is for me. It's my normal. And I think it's normal for a lot of homeschoolers. And, you know, the
It
daily
is too.
battles.
We try not to put it on Instagram, but it is.
Yeah. It's all smiles on Instagram.
No, nobody puts those crazy chaos moments on.
As Instagram demands. Only smiles.
Come on, put the chaos on there. People need to see it.
Thanks so much for joining us today and making us a part of your homeschool journey. Please engage with us on social media. Join our Homeschool Together podcast group on Facebook and find us at Homeschool Together Podcast on Instagram. We'd love to hear your feedback, questions, and recommendations. Until next time.
Happy homeschooling!